How's everybody? Is the weather not incredible? What is this? This is not even Florida weather. This is wonderful Florida weather. This is what we hope and pray for at least 4 days out of the year. We hope and pray for this. I personally only pray for it like 1 or 2 days out of the year because it was really cold this morning. And I'm one of those guys that I deal with the heat any way I can, but I was not born in the cold. I was born here. And so my blood is never really, it's cooled down. I'm still warm-blooded. And, one of the first things I do when my cars break, when the water leaks out of your, you don't know what this is, but Kenny does. If the heater core starts leaking, I just take the heater core out. We don't need our heaters in Florida. So all of my cars, except for one, have no heat. And so, it's not good. It's not good. So I deal with that. This is just fix it the cheapest way possible. We've been doing that for years. Really, really glad you're here. Glad you're enjoying the weather. And glad you're enjoying each other. A couple of things I want to remind you of real quick before we get rolling. Some of you were downstairs when we announced the picnic. Next Sunday after at 5 o'clock at Langford Park in Jensen. If you don't know what that is, type it. You can find it. Langford Park in Jensen Beach. We'll have a picnic. We come together, bring all kinds of food, bring your favorite food. We make sure that there's chocolate involved because some of us need it. We just need it. It's just what we eat. So we come together. But it has a lot to do with my message today. It has a lot to do with taking the next step and what it is to be a follower of Christ. I am really pleased to know that, a couple of weeks ago, Nate started a message series, and it had to do with the new year and how we plan the new year and what we're going to do with the new year. And we, the new year is a time that we generally start to add things to our life, hopefully, and some of them last and they stick. It's that time of year that I look at our Christmas pictures. I did it last year. I looked at our Christmas pictures. We took them out here, and no matter how hard I tried to suck in my belly, it just was not going to go away. And I looked at it, and my wife, I said, my belly won't go. And she goes, because you're chunky, boy. And so I decided, the New Year's resolution, I pulled back and I did it. I lost 20 pounds. And then I spent the next 8 months slowly putting it back on, which is the fun part for me, really. But again, New Year's resolution, we start cutting back. We add and we take away. Hopefully we take away things that are not helpful. We add things that are beneficial. Nate talked about 2 weeks ago, taking our thoughts captive. Taking our thoughts captive and how valuable that is, and not only valuable, how necessary it is. And when we don't do that, our thoughts can take us places that we didn't intend to go and leave us in a position, in a condition that we didn't expect to be in. Taking thoughts captive. It's not only necessary, it's possible. Until you begin to do it, you really are a slave to those thoughts. And those thoughts are not always yours. They come all the time. I love the message. It was so detailed. I wish I could give it again today, but I couldn't do it like Nate did it. Go online, go to our Facebook page, Life Church Jensen Beach Facebook page, and watch that message. Last week, he talked about dealing with temptation. That temptation's going to come. We all have to deal with it, but how do you deal with it effectively? And there was some information there that is very applicable, very practical. Go watch it. It's really good. This week, we're adding one more to that series on what to add to your life. And generally these days, to add something to our life, we got to take something away, right? We're pretty busy people. So if we're going to add a thing, we better be willing to cut something out. What we're going to talk about today is not something that's just kind of important and you ought to think about it. It's vitally important to your life as a follower of Christ. I know people who do not follow Christ, but they actually go to groups that do this, and it has affected them so positively, they decided to follow Christ. What happens and what we're going to talk about today it's life-changing for everyone involved. The title of my message is Don't Try This Alone. Don't try to live this life, this Christian walk alone. You weren't designed to. The word today, the key word that comes out of another word we're going to look at is fellowship. It's fellowship. And you may think you know what that means, but today, when it's all over, you'll know if you knew what it meant. Fellowships, how we relate to each other when we gather together, how followers of Christ relate to each other, what we do when we actually get together. And here's the thing. I really mean this. Please hear me. You cannot afford to be without this. In our culture today, this is probably true of all time, but certainly in our culture today, the way things are, you cannot afford to be without this. Seriously consider doing this year, starting it immediately. I want to back way up for a second. When God created it all, when it all started, God creates the heavens and the earth, and Adam, and he looks at it all, and he said, it's all good, except for one thing. One thing. Anybody know what that was? Adam's aloneness. It was all good except for Adam's aloneness. He says, it's not good that man should be alone. So he gives them a helper. He creates Eve. I think Adam was very pleased at that. Very happy. I would be. The helper for Adam wasn't just about giving him somebody to be with. It was about populating the earth and forming what we know now as community. It's what this message is about. It's community. Did you know that you can be married and have a really good relationship and still be very much alone? My wife and I moved back here from college, and we got in a little condo right down the street, Villa del Sol. It was the cheapest, grodiest condos on the ocean you could get, $350 a month. But it was cool because we would get up in the mornings and she'd boogie board and I would surf. It was beautiful. And we would get done in the evenings from work, come home and sit. And you know what we did? We were alone together. We were alone together. Because when you're married, you become one. And we were one unit. And we were alone. And getting married doesn't answer this question of community, this question of fellowship. This deep longing that we have, this hole in our soul, so to speak, that we need Christian community. And listen, it's not about just getting together with other people, because there's lots of people you can get together with that you're not going to have fellowship. And you can get together and watch a football game or play some stuff or go longboarding or whatever you want to do and not have what we're talking about today. So we're going to go into detail. We're going to define what this is so you can know, do I have this or do I not? I want you to, God creates the earth, he creates Adam, it's not good, creates Eve, population begins, fast forward thousands of years from that point, okay? To the writing of the New Testament, more specifically to the writing of the book of Acts. The book of Acts chronicles what the church, how the church was formed, the beginning stages of the church, us, the church. And believe it or not, when they gathered, there was worship that happened. Messages were taught, teaching went out, fellowship happened. Next week we'll break bread together. Breaking bread is a part of that mix. And the book of Acts describes this very, very clearly. In Acts, there's a word used. We said it last week, but it's not a common word, and it's an incredibly important word. It's a word that's absolutely central to the church. It's central to us. We are the church. And I mentioned this word last week if you were here. And the word is koinonia. I want you to know I'm using something new today. I've actually never used this before for my messages. I usually use paper. And I just pushed a button and completely lost where I was at. Is that not cool that I did that? I just think, how incredible is that? I mean, I touched it and now it's gone, but I think I touched the right button to get it back. No, I really didn't. See if I can, oh, there it is. See if I can do that. I'm back. Look, I'm back. There it is right. And how cool is that? This is the technology we have today. We've just caught up today and gone behind all at once. Koinonia is the word. Remember last week I mentioned we're going to talk about koinonia? Koinonia. It's an interesting word. It's a Greek word. And the primary meaning of koinonia is about our word fellowship. However, it means a lot more than that. It includes a lot more than that. Acts 2 verse 42 describes how the early followers of Christ, the early church, how they functioned together when they got together. Now the point was, it was a given that they were to get together. They understood they were to get together. It was not a mystery to them that they were to come out of their homes and get together in a group, because they understood the power of that group, and they understood this was about what they did when they got together. So let's just say we all agree that we need to get together in groups. This is what they did when they got together in groups. Acts 42. Now I want you to follow along as I read this. Listen, Acts 2 verse 42 should be up here. It says, they, meaning the church, the early church, the followers of Christ, devoted themselves. Stop and think for a second. They devoted. What is devotion? It's full-blown commitment, isn't it? When you're devoted to something, nothing's going to distract you from it. A football game coming on that night is not going to keep you from being devoted to a thing. If you're devoted to a relationship or devoted to a thing, it's a priority in your life that nothing's going to stop you from doing it. So they, the church, devoted themselves to what? The apostles' teaching, number one. They didn't want to stay the same. See, they had heard things and learned things, but they wanted to learn more because the stuff they had learned had so profoundly affected them, they wanted more of it. So they came together and devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, number one, and to fellowship, number two, and to the breaking of bread, eating together. Did you know in that culture to break bread together was more than just like sitting down and having a meal? To break bread with somebody, you were saying to them, I am wide open to you. I want to have a relationship with you. I want to go deeper in our relationship. I trust you. We're going to break bread together. The apostles' teaching, fellowship, the breaking of bread, and to prayer. That's what they did when they got together. Fellowship is right up there with prayer, right up there with teaching. To fellowship, it's that important. Christian fellowship is a key aspect of the Christian life. Without it, you're empty in that area of your life, the relational area of your life. Yeah, but I'm married. That's not the point. The essence of koinonia is what happens when you get together with other followers of Christ. Koinonia is what happens when those who love and follow Jesus Christ come together. Paul, the apostle most of the New Testament was written by him, letters to the churches that he started. He started a church in a city called Philippi that he dearly loved. He loved these people. They knew him. He knew them. He cared for them like children. He loved them dearly, and he wanted them to do well. So what he writes to them is being written from like a father's perspective, a father of the faith. Like, guys, I want you to do really good. I want you so much to win. And here's what he says. He says this in Philippians 2, verse 1 and 2. He says, make my joy complete. He goes, guys, you know me, I know you, we love each other. You want to make me happy? All the sacrifice I made when I was there for you, want to make me happy? Make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and in purpose. Now listen, think about that. How do you take a group of people that are diverse in every way? They're different ages. They go from different social strata. They make different incomes. They're different age. They have different backgrounds, different attitudes. They're different personalities and preferences. How do you take a group of people like us and make us like-minded? How does that happen? How do you make us one in spirit and one in the same love? How do we do that? One in purpose? It's koinonia. It's koinonia. It's what's found in this word koinonia. A really powerful example of what koinonia should look like when Christians get together is found in a simple two-word phrase, and it's throughout the New Testament. Specifically, we're going to look at some verses today. It's a two-word phrase. What happens is all about one another. One another. Now, one another flies in the face of our cultural norms, doesn't it? One another is not individualism. And our culture, individualism is king. Give me my rights. I need my space. My. And one another is completely opposite of my. It's us. And more specifically, it's us and then it's you. I'm going to care for you. More than I'm going to care about, I don't need my space. You can come into my space. I want you to imagine for a minute. Can you just, with me, imagine what your life would be like? And this is so applicable. If you're 12 years old, or if you're 78 years old, or 93 years old, all in between, this is applicable to you. Can you imagine just for a minute how powerful it would be, how life-changing it would be if you were a part of a group that met every single week? Once a week, you got together with these folks that teaches what we're about to read, that functions how we're about to read. I want you, as I read this, I want you to just think for a second, how would my life change? How would this be? Romans 12:10, again, we're looking at this phrase, one another. Romans 12:10 commands us to be devoted to one another. We said it a minute ago, devotion is like priority. It's saying, you're a priority to me. Other things of life, I put aside for you. And when you get involved in a group and you are a priority to the others in the group, it moves you. It moves you. It gives you self-worth and value that you didn't know you had. To be devoted to another person gives you a purpose and a meaning, and it builds them up. He says, be devoted to one another and honor one another. Be devoted to one another and honor one another. Let's stop and think about that for a second. To be honored. Anybody, have you ever been honored by a group of people or an individual or even your kids for a minute? Ever been honored? You know how that makes you feel to be honored? People stop for a minute and they honor you. They give you a surprise birthday party, do something special for you. It honors you. At work, you get this watch or you're honored and people really do look up. That builds you up. That makes you, honestly, it just makes you feel good when you're honored. Kids, when you honor your parents, it's a command in the Bible, and it's one with a promise that your days will be long and happy. And to honor someone is to, even if they don't necessarily always deserve it, is to honor them for just who they are, for being human, for being God's creation, for being the parent. To honor someone, literally, now I'm not exaggerating, if somebody honors you at a time in your life, that one person can change the direction of your life. One teacher honoring a child, making a child feel special and smart, can change the future direction of that child's life. It did mine. Most of the teachers were afraid of me and scared that the rumors had flown. Don't let him in your class. Something's wrong with him. He thinks he's funny and he's not. And I had one teacher who just, for some reason, didn't hear the rumors and picked me out and said, I'm going to make that kid feel honored, special. And it changed me forever. I'll never forget her. And I've mentioned to you before that God loved me so much, when I moved from 4th to 5th grade, she moved too, and I got her again. I don't think it was for me. I think God just said, poor kid, I'm going to help him. I love that. Honored. To be devoted to one another and to honor one another. Romans 12:16 and 1 Peter 3:8 tells us to live in harmony with each other. When we get in these groups, we're to work at being in harmony with each other. You know what the opposite of harmony is? Conflict. Contention, disagreement, discord, dissension, hostility. And the writer says, Paul, writing to the church in Rome, says, look, when you come together in your groups, do away with that stuff. There's no room for that stuff. That's not who you are. That's not what you're working at. Teenagers in school, your friends, there's so much hostility and so much jealousy and so much gossip. And you come in representing Christ, and you can bring harmony into those insane relationships. You can. I've seen it happen from teenagers and children. Harmony. Romans 15:7 says that we should accept one another. Have you ever been in a group that you know you were not accepted in? How much fun is that? Is that not difficult? You may have never experienced that, and I'm happy for you if you didn't. But I'm telling you, it's a very, very painful experience to feel unaccepted. It's degrading, devaluing, painful. And Paul's saying to the church in Rome, when people come, accept them. Yeah, but they're strange. I know. You're strange. You just don't know it. Accept them. Accept anyone. Hey, they're kind of vulgar. They're not church people. They come and they got bad language. Accept them. I'm going to tell them what's wrong. No, you zip it and you accept them. Your judgment's not going to change them, but you're accepting them just may. Accept them for the long haul. They've been here 6 months and they're not changing much. You just keep accepting them. Jesus did that with his disciples. They just continued to be strange at times. And he continued to love them and accept them. Galatians 5:13 commands that we serve one another. How different is that from our culture? I'm going to serve myself. Survival of the fittest. Paul says when you come together in these groups, you serve each other. You literally walk in and you decide, how can I serve these people? I've said this before, but it really bears repeating. I decided when our family took a vacation, we would pray in the very beginning in our van. We would pray, God, help us to serve each other. And each child would go around, and I would and Natalie would, God, help us to make everybody else happy. Help me to make Nate happy. Help Nate to, and we would just pray that. And you know, we had great fun on our cheap vacations where you had to go to the presentation for 90 minutes to stay in the free condo for 2 days. But it worked. It changes everything when you're there to serve somebody else and they're served of you. Look how it turns around the norm of life. We should serve one another. Ephesians 4:32 says that we're to be kind and compassionate towards one another. You know what kindness is and compassion is? Somebody falls and fails. You're not going to rail on them. You're going to be compassionate towards them. You know why? Because you've fallen and failed. Yeah, but I haven't recently. But you will if you keep it up. Compassion towards people. Kindness. Kindness. Just that word. Unfolding what that word means and how that looks. Being kind. Yes, we're to be this way everywhere we go. We're to get in groups together, and this is to be the norm. So that when you go out of that group, you've been trained in that group how to live life. And it's not just functional. It's really healthy. Ephesians 4:2 says that we are to be kind and compassionate, and also it says this. Here's a little different take from our culture, how we are supposed to get together. It says we are to admonish one another. Admonish? Wait a minute. Let me tell you what that actually means, the word admonish. Some people believe it means to correct gently. Well, not necessarily. It means to warn or reprimand firmly. To admonish is not always a fun thing. It's sometimes very firm, to admonish one another. Sounds all wrong in our culture. I don't need anybody telling me what to do. I don't need anybody finding fault with me, man. I got enough of that in the world. Let me alone. Yes, you do. You need somebody helping you. I desperately needed somebody helping me. And God gave me some people that would help me see the areas that I was blind in, that I was foolish in. Did you know that the stupider you are, the less you want people to tell you what to do? Did you know that's true? The more foolish you are, the less you want people telling you anything. Isn't that scary? A wise man seeks the counsel of others, seeks wise counsel. Admonish. You know, it would have saved me potentially a lot of pain and struggle and sorrow if some people had admonished me when they could have. I'm not kidding you. I had some dear friends, older Christians that were older than me, that should have admonished me a number of times for my behavior and my choices. And instead, I don't think they wanted to step on my toes. They weren't as comfortable. They were doing a lot better than I was in those areas, but they just didn't want to, they didn't want to, get into my life too much and get in my business too much. They should have. They should have. We save our friends. We save those around us a lot of pain and sorrow when we take the risk of losing their friendship by admonishing them. Everything we do with love as a motivation, right? So that means if you're going to admonish someone with a love as your motivation, you're not going to rail on them and walk away. You're just stupid and walk away. You're going to be gentle and kind, but firm and direct. Admonish. We're to admonish each other when we get together in those groups. 1 Thessalonians, that's one I have trouble with. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 and Hebrews 2:13 says that we should encourage one another. What if every time, at least once a week, you went to a group that you knew you were going to be encouraged in? Every Wednesday night, we have a group of high school students and college-age students that meet in a home in South Stewart area, Golden Gate. Every single week we meet, and it never fails that people are encouraged in that group. It never fails that people are loved in that group. We have kids in that group that don't come to this church. They don't go to any church. Some of them go to other churches. But when they come in the door, I think some of them are misfits in the youth groups where they're at. They don't do well, but they come in their door. They feel loved. They feel accepted. They feel encouraged. We sing songs together. We open the Word together. And we're going to break bread this Wednesday and have pizza together. Communion. And it changes everything. When you feel encouraged on a consistent basis, it changes. You want to go back. That's why those kids keep coming back now for 4 or 5 years. They just keep coming back. It's encouraging to be encouraged. It's motivating to be encouraged. Also in Hebrews 10:24, it tells us that we are to spur one another towards love and good deeds. We're to spur each other on. You know what? When you spur a horse, you get him to go, you get him up, go. You encourage each other in a way that's clear to go do good. Don't be satisfied with just staying in our groups. Let's stay here. It's such a good group. We're so encouraging. It's so great. Just stay here. Can we just stay here? Let's not go anywhere. But no, we encourage each other to go out and do good for other people. This is how we represent Christ. Spur each other on to love and to good deeds. 1 Peter 4:9 says that we're to offer hospitality to one another. Yeah, that sounds obvious. Not so easy. You know what that means, hospitality? It generally means bring them in your house. They're going to get in your space. I don't know if I may meet them at a restaurant. But I want them in my house. Hospitality. It means what's theirs for a moment in time is yours. What's yours is theirs. It means being comfortable with having people that you're uncomfortable with possibly in your dwelling and letting God work through you to love on them. Hospitality is, you ever put out your best china, ladies? Got any best china? We used to do that when people come over. My mom would put her best china out. Did we have best china? It was just better quality, cheaper plates. Is that what it was? Probably. Because, life wasn't easy back in the 70s. But I remember, we were given some nice china when we got married. We had a big marriage, and we had china that was given. And every now and then people would come home. Natalie would put the finest china out. You put out your best. You don't reserve it for yourself. You put out your best. Hospitality. You give them the best. This is what it looks like. This is what koinonia looks like. In 1 Peter 1:22 and 1 John 3:11 says that we should love one another. And you go, oh yeah, that's kind of obvious. Well, you know what? Go open up the love chapter. Go open up 1 Corinthians 13. And then you measure that love by how you love. Because the love of this world, the conditional acceptance of this world is not what it's talking about here. The love if you're lovable is not what it's talking about. This is the love of Christ. This is the love that God demonstrated to a world who crucified his son. This is the love that Christ demonstrated when he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. This is the unconditional love of God. With all of your awkwardness and your foibles and your weirdness, God says, I love you regardless. I even like your quirks. We're to love each other that way. You walk out of a room with people and you just bow your head and say, those people love me. Wow. It's what true koinonia looks like. See, it's more than just getting together. It is. Getting together is a place to begin, but it's more than that. It's what happens in the small groups. It's happening right now on our Wednesday night group. It's happening right now with the small groups that are happening in this church. And I am encouraging you and exhorting you to go after it so that it happens in your life. Yeah, but I don't want people knowing our business. We don't get along very well sometimes. Well, join the club for goodness sake. The best of the best, the highest of the high, the most spiritual. Yeah, don't get along sometimes. We fight bad. Sometimes you would be shocked how we fight. It gets ugly. Yeah, well, okay then. That's the whole point of getting together. And you don't air your laundry immediately, but over time you become more comfortable. And you can share your burdens. And other people do a thing called bear your burdens. They help you bear them. And suddenly the burden is lighter. And people are praying for you. And you see answered prayers. And you have clear direction. This is what it is. This is what koinonia brings. God created you with a deep need for community, a deep longing for community. And in our culture, we don't even recognize it. You don't wake up in the morning, I just need community today. We don't, because we're so busy just trying to keep our heads above the water table so we don't choke. And the truth is, the things that we don't have time for are the most important things of all. If we set aside the busyness, you know what it would mean for Natalie and I? It would mean now she's working a full-time job. It's a hard job. She had her first week last week. She comes home very, very tired. It's been my job to make sure she comes home and she doesn't have to do anything. That means on a Thursday night, she has to get up and out of her house, her and I, and go to somebody else's house and spend an hour and a half fellowshipping. Instead of what? Watching what? Wheel of Fortune? I like Wheel of Fortune. Jeopardy? It's another story. I tell you, risk it. Push yourself. It is no wonder we struggle bad. It's no wonder we have for years. It's no wonder we can't gain any traction. It's no wonder we haven't included in our life this ingredient called koinonia that is the very foundation of what Christ came to accomplish in us. Alone doesn't get it. Hanging out with a few people and, drinking a beer. Nothing wrong with beer. If I liked it, I might drink it. Just not too much of it. That doesn't get it. Meeting with a bunch of friends and going out to dinner. That doesn't get it. It's good. It's a place to begin. Koinonia. Knowing what it is and deciding this is how we're going to live. Did you know, I'm going to flip this just for a second as we begin to close this. Just for a second. Did you know if you're a prisoner, the very worst punishment you can get, other than maybe having your life taken from you, the very worst punishment? That's right. Isolation. Solitary confinement. It is unnerving what it does to a person. Studies have been done over the years, over the generations, of what happens to a person. In Nazi Germany, horrible studies were done with isolation. And it literally drives a person stark, raving mad. They lose, listen, when they're isolated, they lose perspective of what is real and what is not real. They lose perspective of if their thoughts are legitimate or even thoughts at all. They lose reality. They lose touch. Did you know when we isolate ourselves in our culture, even though we go to work and we watch TV and there's people around us, we literally, to a degree, we lose perspective of who we really are, what we really sound like, and how we really need to live. I'm going to ask Lewis Warren to come up for a second. Lewis has been with us for quite a while. And from the very beginning of when we moved to this area and walked around a neighborhood in Jensen, one of the first doors we knocked on, the first 5 doors, was this guy. And I want him just to share with you what has happened.
Well, we talk about relationships, and I was in a situation where I had just gotten over a very serious illness that pretty much struck me down and put me on my backside. And I went through a process of where I had lost my marriage. My son had grown up to become a young man and moved on and went into the Navy. And I went through this process that was very lonely. I was very good at going to work and performing work and pushing parts and getting things to the customers that needed to get done. But I realized when I got involved with Rick and Life Church, he had challenged me a couple of times to just come and be a part of the church. I could barely stand at times through my healing process, and he challenged me to come on Wednesday nights, which we used to meet in a little quaint place in Rio. And I thought, well, I didn't feel comfortable doing it. I didn't think I belonged. I was in a church, but I was getting nothing out of it. But Rick had challenged me to come and sit with a small group on Wednesday night. It was a very intimate group of people. We played music and we fellowshiped with each other. And that started a process for me. And I realized what at the time was Renaissance Church, what it meant, what that church meant. And it was very much a church of relationships, going and having people care about you and hug on you and love on you. And after going through a divorce, my son growing up going into the Navy, I was by myself. And it was very difficult. And there were 3 things missing in my life at the time. I was going through loneliness, love, and a depth in my life. And I've been involved with 3 small groups at this point. And I've always been amazed how God orchestrates things. And I think he's opened my eyes up a lot. And as I think back on each of those small groups that I was involved in, I was very uncomfortable in the beginning. I didn't know how to sit with a group of complete strangers, that I just met at church. But they said, just come and sit. And I realized that God was orchestrating something in my life. And my first group dealt with my loneliness. It taught me to sit with a group of complete strangers and eventually start opening up, start sharing what I had read in the Bible and I had heard from other pastors, but I didn't do anything with it. And that went on for about, 6 months, maybe 9 months. And I got involved with another small group that dealt with the second part of my life is I thought I would never love again. And it was an amazing group of people, young people, different age groups. And I got involved in that small group, and we just started talking about loving on each other, caring about each other, praying for each other throughout the week. You know, something would come up with someone in the group, and you'd get a text message or something, we need prayers. And same for myself. I work a very high-pressure job, and there were a lot of times I didn't have the courage to pray for myself back then. But I had this group of people that cared about me and loved on me that would pray for me during the week. You know, and it would be great to be sitting and getting ready to walk into a pressure-filled meeting, you know, with a bunch of executives and stuff, and get a text from somebody out of the small group, you know, just out of the blue. And so the small groups always taught me to stay connected, to, you know, be comfortable with people. And at the time I wasn't. I could run parts to the shop and be strong for the company and everything, but outside of work, I was very much by myself. So in that second group, you know, I dealt with love. We did that group for probably a good year and a half, close to 2 years. And I tell you what, there's some amazing people in it. And now I'm involved with my third group. And now I'm starting to get depth in my Christian life. I'm with some amazing people. And for the first time, I could really say that there's roots to my Christian life through the knowledge that I've gained through the first 2 classes. And now I sit with a group of people that have many life experiences that we share. And I don't care what I go through in a course of a day, a week, I can discuss that at this group, this small group. And these people care. These people share their experiences. And I realize I'm not the only one that's went through this stuff myself. And so, you know, it's eliminated all that loneliness and that feeling like you got to take the world on by yourself. And I just can't express to you how important it is to, if you get a chance to be involved with a small group of people, even if you're uncomfortable in the beginning, just do it. You know, get together, study the Bible, do a video series together. I think for the first, time, I'm starting to hear messages, some that Nate give and that Rick give here that really, I heard them, but I didn't understand them. But because of these small groups and the way that we dig into the Word and the messages and the series that we do, I've been able to understand a little better and apply them in my life. And I can walk into work and, something that we've studied, an Andy Stanley video or something, I can take those things and I can see it happen at work. Now, for the first time in my life, I can apply those principles in my life. So I know that I'm getting depth and roots, from those small groups. And I encourage you very much to get involved, share with other people, listen to their stories, encourage them throughout the week, pray for them throughout the week, and know that you're not alone. It's huge.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Last year, I asked you a question. It was a very, very, very pointed question. It was, what would your life have been like? What would your parents have been like? How different would your home have been growing up? If your mom and your dad, before the divorce, if they got involved with a group of people on a weekly basis that did the stuff that we just talked about, how different might that have been? How different would your childhood have been? All right, right now, maybe your childhood is behind you, even your youth is behind you. It is time not to run from this anymore. I don't know anybody that was any more afraid ever than Lewis was to be in this market. He said, I just can't do it, man. And we could give it a try. Give it 1 week. Give it 5 minutes. And it's been 8 years. I encourage you to do this. Can we pray? Can we pray as the band comes up and plays a song? I just want to challenge you deeply. I want to challenge you deeply to get courageous, to get gutsy, to let go of the fear, and to involve yourself in a group of people that are going to seek God just like you're seeking God. Some are going to be more seasoned and down the road. Some are going to be less experienced and maybe more messed up than you are. You're going to get a chance to love other people as you're being loved and help other people as you're being helped. I'm starting a small group in my home starting very soon. If you think you might want to be a part of that, let me know. I've only got room for a few couples. I've invited a few. I think we may have room for 1 or 2 more if everybody shows up. But don't be shy. And if I can't hook you up into mine, we will start another one and put somebody. We will find a way for you. If we have 5 brand new people and one of you knows the Lord well, you're the leader. And suddenly your life will take on a new meaning. Don't be shy about this. Okay, this guy over here in the front row, Jeff, is really orchestrating our small group ministry. Come talk to him. Come talk to me. Talk to Paul. Talk to Tom. Anybody else in the room that's one of our leaders, talk to them. But make it a big deal. Make it a priority. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much for what your word teaches and how accurate it is and how the promises in your word are true, Father. And this teaching that comes from right out of the heart of God, out of your heart, through Paul the Apostle, Lord, through the writer of Acts, comes into us and says, if you will do this, it will change. It will give you an opportunity to change all the stuff that needs to be changed and strengthen all the things that are already there that are good. God, I pray that for this group, that courage would rise up, that we would, even if we're just here for 3 months, we would say for 3 months, I'm going to be in a group that matters. And God, I pray this with all of my heart, that leaders would rise up out of this today that are going to say, I want to lead a small group. I can do this. And I just pray that people would get courageous and take hold of this and that you would give them the courage to do it. Thank you for these people in this day.